Christmas, a time of peace and joy for many people, when families gather around and gifts are given. But not for the tragic Sodder family. They faced a Christmas nightmare beyond comprehension. Did you know that the Sodder family received details of mysterious sightings of their children long after they supposedly died in a raging house fire? It's a chilling twist in an already baffling case. Welcome to You Should Be Scared. So good to have you here. This is your number one destination for all that's mysterious and unsolved. I'm your host Robbie Davis, your guide into the paranormal realm. Get ready for one of the most bizarre cases I've personally ever heard of. 5, 6, grab your crucifix, because something very strange is happening here. The air was crisp, filled with the anticipation of Christmas morning. Inside the Sodder family home in Fayetteville, West Virginia, the glow of Christmas lights painted a warm scene. The scent of pine needles and the sound of children's laughter filled the air. It was a picture of holiday cheer, a night like many others. But this Christmas Eve would become a night etched in tragedy, a night that would haunt the Sodder family forever. George and Jenny Sodder were the proud parents of 10 children. Their home was filled with the chaos and joy that comes with a large family. The children, excited for the gifts awaiting them under the tree, were allowed to stay up past their bedtime. The younger ones eventually drifted off to sleep, their dreams filled with thoughts of Santa and Christmas wishes. Upstairs, 5 of the Sodder children slept soundly, unaware of the events about to unfold. 14-year-old Maurice shared the attic bedroom with his brother Lewis, who was 10 years old, and his 3 sisters. Martha, who was 12, Jenny, who was 8, and Betty, who was only 6 years old. Downstairs, their parents and 4 other siblings slept peacefully, the Christmas lights twinkling in the darkness. The fire in the fireplace had died down to embers. Outside, a light snow began to fall, blanketing the town of Fayetteville in a serene silence. It was a night meant for peace and joy, but that peace was about to be shattered by unimaginable terror. A loud noise jolted Jenny Sodder awake. She thought she also heard the noise of something rolling down the roof, but she dismissed it as imagination or part of a dream. But then, half an hour later, there was the acrid smell of smoke. Jenny rushed to her door. Smoke billowed down the hallway. Panic surged through her. She screamed for George. The house was an inferno. Flames roared through the living room. They scrambled to gather the children. They managed to get 4 out, guiding them to safety outside. But 5 remained trapped. The fire was too intense. George and Jenny screamed the children's names, but only the roar of flames answered. The fire cast an eerie glow over their horror-struck faces. As the flames died down and the smoke cleared, the Sodders were left to sift through the ashes of their shattered lives. 5 of their children were now gone, supposedly taken by the fire, but if that was true, where were their bodies? The fire had been swift and merciless, leaving behind only charred timbers and a profound sense of loss. The official investigation concluded that the fire was accidental, caused by faulty wiring, but the Sodders couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Too many things didn't add up. Firstly, there was the phone call Jenny received earlier that night. Then the mysterious car seen around town, strange visitors to the house in the weeks leading up to the fire, and many other things that suggested this was far from a tragic accident. As they dug deeper, the Sodders uncovered more inconsistencies, more unanswered questions that fueled their belief that the fire was no accident. We'll look at all these bizarre inconsistencies and more, but first we need to understand the events that preceded that horror-filled Christmas Eve. George and Jenny settled in Fayetteville as a young newlywed couple. It was a town with a thriving Italian immigrant community, filled with people with similar stories to themselves, and they were made welcome immediately. George established his own trucking company. The business began hauling coal, and George became a respected figure within the community. The Sodder family grew alongside George's business. Children blessed the couple's life, filling their home with laughter and love. George was never afraid to speak his mind, and he became a vocal critic of Benito Mussolini. His words reflected his unwavering belief in freedom and democracy. George's outspoken nature made him several enemies. His outspoken criticism of Mussolini created a rift within the community. His words would cast a long shadow over his life and the lives of his family. As 1945 went on, troubling incidents started to occur around the Sodder family. One day in October, a life insurance salesman came to the home hoping to sell George some insurance. After being rejected, the insurance salesman warned George angrily, "Your house is going to go up in smoke, and your children are going to be destroyed." Then a few weeks before Christmas, a man, claiming to be looking for work, appeared at the Sodder home. The man's gaze fixed on the fuse boxes. "Those boxes," he remarked ominously, "are going to cause a fire someday." George assured him the wiring was safe, as it had just been replaced when they had a new electric stove fitted. The man finished his drink and abruptly left. George, though troubled, tried to rationalize it away. Still, the seed of doubt grew in George's unease. Then, just before the children broke up from school for Christmas, George's older sons reported seeing a strange car parked along the town's main highway, watching the younger Sodder children return from school. Then the fateful night of Christmas Eve finally arrived. On that evening, the phone rang around 12:30 a.m. Getting up, Jenny went downstairs to answer. A woman with an unfamiliar voice asked for a name Jenny didn't recognize, while the sound of laughing and clinking glasses could be heard. Jenny told the caller she had the wrong number. Later recalling the caller's weird laugh, she hung up and went back to bed, thinking nothing more of it. Then there was the fact that raising help for the family and their trapped children was unexpectedly difficult during the fire. The family desperately tried to rescue the other children. They looked for a ladder to try and gain access to the attic, but it was nowhere to be found, even though they swore it was on the ground nearby the house earlier that day. George then tried to bring both of his business trucks to the house to try to climb to the attic window, but neither would start despite working perfectly the day before. The 6 surviving family members' rescue efforts were hindered, and all they could do was watch the house burn and collapse. It was completely destroyed within 45 minutes of them escaping the house. The fire department, low on manpower due to the war, were not able to raise a response until later that morning. Afterwards, Fire Chief F.J. Morris said that his inability to drive the fire truck forced him to have to wait until someone who could drive it could be reached. The firefighters, one of whom was Jenny's brother, could only look through the Sodder's basement ashes for remains. By 10 that morning, the fire chief told the Sodders that they had not found any bones, but, regardless of this, Chief Morris told the family that he strongly believed that the 5 missing children had all perished in the fire. The aftermath of the fire and the intervening years were no less strange. Morris told George to leave the site so the state fire marshal could investigate more thoroughly. However, after 4 days the couple could no longer bear the sight of the burned house. George decided to use a digger to fill the hole left by the house with earth. The next day, the local coroner held an inquest and found that the fire was caused by faulty wiring. Chillingly, one of the jurors at the coroner's court was the man who had threatened George and said that his house and children would be destroyed. In their grief, George and Jenny could not attend the funeral on January 2nd, 1946, but their older children did attend on their behalf. The Sodder family soon began to question the official findings as they tried to rebuild their lives. If the fire was caused by an electrical problem, they wondered why the family's Christmas lights stayed on for most of the time that the fire burned. When the fuse box started to burn, shouldn't the power have gone out? They then found the ladder that had been missing from the house's side the night of the fire. It was at the bottom of an embankment 23 meters away. Jenny doubted Chief Morris's claim that the fire completely burned the children's bodies away to ash. Many household appliances and tin roof fragments were found in the ash practically undamaged. Jenny also pointed to a newspaper account of a similar house fire nearby. In that case, skeletal remains of all of the victims were recovered. A local crematorium employee told her that human bones remain after 2 hours of burning at 2000 Fahrenheit, much longer and hotter than the house fire had been. The Sodders' truck's failure to start was considered. George suspected they had been tampered with by whoever had started the fire and moved the ladder. But in 2013, one of George's sons-in-law told the Charleston Gazette-Mail that he believed Sodder and his sons may have accidentally flooded the engines in their haste to start the trucks to rescue the children. Adding even more intrigue to the case, witnesses started to come forward to say they saw the missing Sodder children after the fire. A woman watching the fire from the road said she saw some of them looking out of a passing car while the house burned. Another woman at a rest stop between Fayetteville and Charleston said she served them breakfast the next morning and saw a Florida licensed car in the parking lot. A woman at a motel in Charleston said that she checked a group matching the children into the motel. She recalled, "The children were accompanied by 2 women and 2 men, all of Italian extraction. They registered about midnight. I tried to talk to the children in a friendly manner, but the men appeared hostile and refused to allow me to talk to these children. One of the men looked at me in a hostile manner. He turned around and began talking rapidly in Italian. Immediately, the whole party stopped talking to me. I sensed that I was being frozen out, and so I said nothing more. They left early the next morning. Unfortunately, she waited several years before coming forward with this information, so it was of little help in the case." The Sodders hired a private eye, Tinsley from nearby Gawley Bridge, to investigate. Bizarrely, he heard in Fayetteville that Fire Chief Morris said he had found a heart in the ashes. Apparently, he'd secretly buried it in a metal box while telling the Sodders that no remains had been found. George and Tinsley confronted Morris with this information, and Morris let them dig up the metal box after showing them where he buried it. A local funeral director examined the box and confirmed that it was not a human heart at all, but fresh beef liver. Morris later admitted that he had placed it there in hopes that the Sodders would find it, and believed that the missing children had died in the house fire. But why he would want to do this, nobody knows. George convinced Oscar Hunter, a pathologist, to oversee a new dirt search at the house site in 1949. Several coins and a children's dictionary were found after a thorough search. Small bone fragments were also found that were identified as human vertebrae. However, the investigators said that the bones showed no flame damage and appeared to be from an older person, so did not belong to any of the children. They also agreed that it was very strange that no other bones were found, as a short-lived wood-fueled fire like the Sodders should have left full skeletons of all of the children. The vertebrae was said to have most likely come from a nearby graveyard, but how it made it into the soil of the Sodder family's burned home remains a mystery. The FBI initially investigated the case as a possible interstate kidnapping, but later dropped the case after 2 years of fruitless leads. They told the Sodders that the case was hopeless and closed it at the state level. Years later, the Sodders received a letter that they felt was the most convincing proof that Lewis, one of the missing children, was still alive. Jenny received a letter from Central City, Kentucky. With no return address, inside was a photo of a young man around 30 with features resembling Lewis's, who would now have been in his 30s if he had survived. The Sodders hired another private detective to investigate. He went to Central City, but chillingly never returned, and no one could ever find him. However, the picture gave them hope. They put it on a billboard on their land, offering a reward with pictures of the other children. They also had it framed and enlarged, and put it over their fireplace. In 1969, George Sodder died. Jenny and her surviving children, except John, who never spoke about the fire except to say that the family should accept what happened and move on, kept asking about the missing children's fate. Jenny wore black and tended the memorial garden at the former house for the rest of her life. The family removed the weathered billboard after Jenny's 1989 death. The passage of time has not diminished the fascination with the Sodder case. The mystery deepens with books, documentaries, and online forums. The embers of hope still flicker, fueling the search for answers. Perhaps someday a new piece of evidence will emerge, finally bringing closure. Well, there you have it, you fantastic beasts. The tragic and mysterious disappearance of the Sodder children, and on Christmas Eve no less. So, what do you think happened to the Sodder children? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe, unless you want to end up on the naughty list. Thanks for watching today. Why not check out one of my other videos on the screen? Don't forget to stay curious, stay cautious, and stay tuned for more mysteries. And remember, you should be scared.